All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are here live with one of my favorite people in the industry and a good personal friend. We've known each other for years and years. We won't say how long, Nick, but I've got Nick Neonakis, the CEO and president of the franchise consulting company, also known as FCC. Nick, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Bob. Glad to be here.
All right. So let's get right to it, Nick. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot going on here and with our company, your company, and then certainly the 100 plus companies that you represent at the franchise consulting company. Tell us, what steps have you taken at FCC to prepare your organization for competing in this challenging time?
Thanks, Bob. Well, we have a couple of different companies here, and we represent about 350 different franchise systems across the world, most of them in the United States. And, I'm not going to say that nobody can say that they foresaw a pandemic coming, but I think anybody who was paying attention knew that there was a recession or there was a pretty significant drop that was going to hit at some point. You just can't have an economy that heats up so much. And so last year, early in the year, we started thinking and kind of game planning out what would it look like if things started slowing down. Now, certainly the cause and the severity, we didn't envision, but the planning that we took into effect for all of our brands really paid off a lot of dividends. And so, we thought about it in three different tiers. What happens when things start slowing down? How do you position yourself to be able to take advantage of a downturn? There's the old adage of don't let a good crisis go to waste. And while of course we feel terribly for all the people that have been impacted and who passed away, the reality is that in any business situation you have to have a plan to be able to move forward. So that was what we enacted, and the main opportunity, I think, is if you take pandemic or recession out of the sentence and call it sale, okay? One big sale. There are a lot of assets, there are a lot of opportunities that are out there if companies have the wherewithal to be able to see through this situation where they can grow. And so that's really been our core focus, is how do we grow through this downturn? And so the game plan that we put together, we've been working on enacting it. We've grown the franchise consulting company in terms of the headcount by about 10% since this happened. We have repositioned one of our other businesses, which is a trade show business, the Great American Franchise Expo, to be an online trade show. I think you guys have participated in that. And so that's been very successful. And then our magazine, Franchise Journal, we have now gone completely online with, and that's been terrific. 150 plus pages being published monthly, going out to hundreds of thousands of people. So ultimately, the way that we've prepared for this is thinking about it long term as a downturn. The three different tiers that I was talking about in terms of how do you prepare for something. The first is going to be light adjustments financially. Think of them as overhead reductions. Okay. The second is going to be more discretionary reductions. The third is headcount reductions. And that tends to be, really the very last thing. And so I think for anybody listening to this, what you want to be thinking about in any kind of downturn is, how can you then stay in a tier one scenario where you're making light adjustments to your core business, while at the same time being able to pick up from companies that maybe they weren't quite as have the same amount of forethought, and they're in a tier three. So if you think about the 30 million people that are unemployed out there, that means there are a lot of companies that weren't thinking about what the future looks like. And for companies that are looking to grow through this, there's a lot of talent out there that can be picked up. And so, we can talk about how I see that impacting franchising, but ultimately that's what we did, is we looked out and thought, okay, what happens if, unfortunately, that came to pass. And so we've been ready for this.
Excellent. And Nick, here in the treatment room, we've had CEOs like yourself in the past, and, some of them are in the business that you're in. Some are, basically CEOs of different franchisors, some of them with Hand and Stone. And whenever I ask this question, it's kind of my favorite question because this is really to your core, the people around you. Tell us how your thoughts are of what your team has done and how they've responded to this challenge.
Yeah. So the way we responded to this challenge, and I think in a very public manner, and I'm sure you've seen it, is when everything really started happening very rapidly, is we actually thought about how we could give back to all of the communities that we serve. And so we started a program called FCC Cares and Feed a Kid in conjunction with Feeding America, which is the philanthropy that we choose to support. I'm happy to say that multiple franchise systems embrace this. You know who they are on their main website. There's a giant Feed a Kid button where they can donate. You can donate directly to Feeding America, which feeds millions of people every day. So what I was so thrilled with is the amount of energy and effort that all of our people put into helping the communities that we serve. You know, more so than, hey, let's think about how we can grow our business. It was really about how can we use the platforms that we own and operate in to be able to help. And somewhere around 3,000 different franchisees were involved in this. It generated a huge outpouring from the FCC, from our trade show business. It's been in our magazine. And, I think the first thing you have to think about is, when schools close, kids don't eat. And schools have been closed for a very long time. And it's still a huge, huge issue that's in every single community out there that unfortunately not a lot of people are thinking about because they're thinking about themselves. And so I would urge anybody that is listening to this, take a little bit of the time and the resources that you have and think about how you can give back to the communities that you're in.
That's awesome, Nick. And kudos to you and your organization and those that have given too, because that's something that's near and dear to our heart. We've each year we do a charity event, and the last couple have been really surrounding how we can help children, and that's important because that's sometimes that's the best part of their day, right? Being in school because they know they get a meal and they know they're safe. So
yeah, that's right.
Kudos to you guys. Nick, you're one of the few organizations that really kind of have not completely, but a fairly global reach, right? And you're kind of dealing with this pandemic that is global. Can you draw some comparisons of, how you're reacting to this in different countries versus the United States, and give us an example or two?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things, that we did about 3 years ago is started the integration of technology into our business. Obviously franchise consulting and brokerage is a business of relationships, of knowing the companies that you work with, the people that are there, and then the people that our consultants are working with looking to own a business. And that bond runs very deep to be able to interact with them and make recommendations. So we started thinking about how can we merge the physical world of relationships with an online world of being able to transfer knowledge, right? I mean, that's really the business that we're in, is the knowledge transfer business. And so you probably remember, I know we shot a lot of Hand and Stones here with our virtual reality platform. And so we kind of have a multi-year head start on what happens if you're locked into your home, but you're thinking about what is your next chapter. So we operate in Canada, Sweden, Qatar. We just opened up in Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We opened up in Southeast Asia. Our offices are now in Phnom Penh and in India. And of course, about 140 consultants all across the United States in addition to that. So what I'm seeing is very interesting. In the United States, about over 30 million people are unemployed. There's a huge demand for learning about what is someone's next chapter going to be. Okay, all these people sitting around at home who've been laid off are thinking, if they're in their 40s or 50s, which is really most of the people that we work with, they've been through the the tech crash in 2000. They went through 9/11. They went through the Great Recession, and now they're thinking, what's going to happen if we have something else that comes around when I'm 60? And so you're seeing this huge surge in interest in entrepreneurial ventures, in franchising and in other areas. So my prediction for the United States is that we're probably entering into one of the greatest periods of business creation that we've ever seen. And I'm seeing that also in the other countries that we operate in, because this is a global phenomenon. And, unless in countries where they haven't really been quarantined, like Sweden, where we have an office in Malmo, where they've kind of continued to go, along their daily path. In all the other countries, people who are sitting at home are thinking about, what am I going to do next? What's my next move? And I think for many people, having the independence and the ability to create their own future through business ownership is really being highlighted now by the circumstances of why they're at home. And so, I see a lot of huge positive drivers on the horizon, because ultimately this is a medically caused slowdown. Okay. The economy is still there. Now, it's very important that we get out of this medically induced period of the downturn, or else the economy will be impacted. So, you asked, what is the difference between maybe the domestic market and the international market? I think that because of the access to capital that we have in the United States, which is very different than really anywhere else in the world, the ability to borrow, the ability to use risk capital to start up a business. You've had a more of an egalitarian orientation towards business ownership. Okay, most people in the United States have the ability to purchase a franchise and be part of an organized business structure, as opposed to setting up a lemonade stand on the side of the road. In other countries, it tends to be a very bifurcated market, where the very top part of that socioeconomic curve, the richest people in the country who have capital, tend to be the ones that are engaged in franchising. And then the remainder of the people tend to be the ones that, they're setting up a mom and pop shop somewhere. So because of our access to capital in the United States, the orientation towards risk, government policies that promote business ownership and job creation, and of course the International Franchise Association that serves as a real backstop to promoting these ideals, you have much more ownership opportunities in the United States than you do anywhere else. And so that's primarily the big difference that I see, and why I think that culture that we have here in the US is going to really support business ownership going forward. It's an amazing time to be alive, candidly.
Yeah, I would agree. And you mentioned the crash and technology crash in 2000 and 9/11, the Great Recession, and all those things. I mean, we've been through them. We've survived them. I mean, I was in technology when the technology crash happened. I remember those things. The wonder was, and the big question was, when are we going to get out of this? Right now, it looks like we've got a light at the end of the tunnel. States are opening back up. We're opening more businesses now. So it's very, very promising. What concerns you most, Nick, over the next 3 to 6 months as we head into maybe a brighter time in the nation's future here from this pandemic?
I think the thing that concerns me most is the thing that probably concerns you and everybody else out there is candidly a mutation of this virus and a second wave. If you read your history about the Spanish flu, this is what ended up happening. So that is really my biggest concern, is that there's another wave that is mutated, which then causes a secondary lockdown, quarantine, that then pushes us into a financial recession due to a lack of demand in a broad-based manner.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and as we have seen it from the franchise perspective, and we are a little bit different than some industries, because in franchising, I mean, sales is a numbers game, right? And typically, if unemployment is down, we usually get less people knocking on our door to come into the franchise business. when
That's right.
unemployment is up, we typically have more leads or more people that are trying to own their own business. So since that, obviously we understand that notion. How have you seen that? Is that history going to repeat itself, and are you already seeing the effects of that, Nick, or no? Tell us your experience.
Well, what I've seen is there are three buckets of clients, broadly speaking. Okay, I think of bucket 1, 2, and 3. Bucket 1 are people who they have really pretty much locked down. Okay, and they are not interested in anything that has any amount of risk involved. Bucket 2, which is a very large bucket of clients, are people who think, well, and say, give me 30, 60, 90 days. Let's see how all of this plays out. Okay. Then there's bucket 3, which are very entrepreneurial people that are saying, well, there's lots of opportunities out there. Real estate is getting cheaper. Demand is going to be there, but supply, there's going to be some supply that's taken out. Weaker businesses that don't make it, for instance. Now's the time to go and buy a business. And I'm not advocating any one of those particular buckets. I hear a lot of people, saying buy, and I think learn. Okay, learn about what you want to do. And so I see in bucket 2, I see a lot of opportunities for education. And when the time is right, then for people to go and make that decision. But this is a very deeply personal decision for people to take, to look into the future and to take those kinds of risks. I think you're never going to gain if you don't take risk. And you need to really think through about what types of businesses are going to be strong in this new economy, because it is going to be quite a while until we get back to normal, if we ever get back to normal. I'm sure we will, right? Because human history has a way of kind of getting back to the median, whether it's a bubonic plague or a world war or whatever it might be. But what I'm seeing right now is, and our business is up because of the sheer number of people that are interested. Those buckets 1, 2, and 3, where before they were filled like this, now all of a sudden they're really starting to fill up quite a bit. So in broad strokes, what I'm seeing and what my recommendation is to people is do your homework, learn about what's out there. Think about the industries that you're getting into. Are they going to be ones that are necessary and around? And the reality is, Bob, it isn't really all that different than our advice to people prior to the pandemic. So it isn't that, oh, this thing has happened and now you must shift your thinking completely. It's you need to do your homework. You need to learn about what's out there. You need to do your own independent research. You need to learn about the company. You need to learn about the people. You need to learn about the industry that you're operating in, who the competition is, what the financials look like, how you're going to finance this, how you're going to market it, how are you going to hire people. I mean, these are all components of a business that, whether it's in a pandemic or a post-pandemic world or pre-pandemic world, they're going to be the same. And so, I think our ability at the FCC with our 140 consultants, who the overwhelming vast majority of them have very senior franchise executive backgrounds, CEOs of companies, vice presidents of operations, development. They've been through a lot of these, same dislocations that we were talking about, the tech crash, the recession, and so forth. And so they remember what it was like going into it, going through it, and then getting out of it. And so I think that's the kind of advice that we're able to give to so many people now, not only in the US, but also all around the world.
And just some final thoughts, Nick. If you could grab your entire team in front of you here right now, what would be your message to them today?
I'm so proud of everybody, of the amount of work that you've done in your communities, helping, feeding America, giving back, really, looking at how we can be a positive force during this time. And for all the franchise systems that we work with, we're thrilled that we've been able to create online platforms for you through the Great American Franchise Expo, so that you can interact with prospective clients all around the world. And for the team at the Franchise Journal, for all of the amazing work that they've done in highlighting the franchise systems and the franchisees who make such a big difference, in all of these communities. I've never been more proud of everybody that I interact with, and franchising in general, because of the huge outpouring of support, the can-do attitude that is American franchising. And I know that there are great and extraordinary days in front of us that all of us will be around to partake in. So I'm just really thankful to be a part of this community, and amazed at the strength, the courage, and the giving back of everybody that not only within my organization, but a lot of other great organizations that are out there. So big kudos.
That's awesome, Nick. As a friend, proud to call you a friend, and we've had a lot of great times together. I look forward to getting together on a personal level soon. But thank you for spending some time in the treatment room today. We certainly appreciate it. We appreciate FCC and the people around you. So on behalf of Nicole and I, Nick, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Bob and Nicole. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to spending time together in person one day very soon.
Sounds good. Take care, Nick.
Take care.
All right.